Chapter 1. Professor, I want to join the project team. All right. Professor Peterson didn't even look up, his hand flying across the paper, scribbling and sketching. A moment later, his pen pierced through the sheet. He looked up in astonishment, his gaze unusually serious. Are you certain, even if there's no chance of ever leaving the island? Clara Thompson looked up at her mentor's graying hair and smiled. Professor, the country needs me. You leave in 10 days. Go say a proper goodbye to your family. Clara was the daughter of fallen heroes. Her parents had sacrificed their lives to save Julian Sterling's family. It was Julian who had led her away from their gravestones, telling her, Clara, from now on, my home is your home. When you come of age, I'll marry you. Clara had held on to that promise for 10 years. She had willingly lived in the Sterling household as the family's ward, caring for Julian's parents. During his 8 years in the military, she counted the days until his return, sewing new clothes for him, only to have him tear them to shreds the moment he walked through the door. His face was like ice, and a strange woman stood by his side. Clara Thompson, you don't have to go out of your way to please me. There's no happiness in an arranged marriage. The one I love is Comrade Vivian Wallace. Please leave my home as soon as possible. All affection was gone from the man's eyes, replaced by a resolute hatred, as if he had forgotten that he was the one who had asked her to stay, the one who had promised to marry her. Clara Thompson? The man's angry voice cut through the air. Before Clara could speak, Julian's hand swung across her face. I made myself perfectly clear. Only Vivi, who is my ideological equal, can be with me. And you dared to have someone teach Vivi a lesson? A vicious hag like you. Any man who marries you must have been cursed with the worst luck imaginable. Ignoring the stinging pain in her cheek, Clara rushed to explain, I didn't. Why would I ever hire someone to hurt Comrade Wallace? Turning to the side, she was lost for words. Vivian Wallace's fair skin was covered in dark bruises, a horrifying contrast. Noticing her gaze, Vivian arched an eyebrow in triumph. It was almost comically absurd. Clara gave a bitter smile, suddenly feeling how pointless it all was. This was just one of Vivian's petty tricks. And yet, Julian believed it without a shred of proof. She closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them again, she looked at the two of them and said calmly, So what do you want from me? An apology, Julian snorted. We don't need it. For the next few days, you'll stay here and take care of my parents and Vivian. She's badly injured and can't do any housework. Clara didn't refuse. She was leaving in a few days anyway, and it was only right to spend some time with the two elders. That evening, the food was served. Just as she was about to sit down, Julian slammed his chopsticks down on his bowl. The porcelain bowl, specially prepared for Vivian, crashed to the floor, and the thin cornmeal gruel splattered everywhere. Clara froze, then bent down to clean up the shards. Arthur Sterling exploded with anger. What's wrong with you during dinner? Are you happy now that you've wasted good food? Julian's lips thinned, his voice laced with displeasure. You should be blaming Clara for this. As Clara stared blankly, a shard sliced her finger. Blood welled up, but no one noticed. Vivi was beaten up because of her. She needs proper nutrition right now. And this is what she serves her. Where's your conscience? Did a dog eat it? Chapter 2. Vivian Wallace tugged on Julian Sterling's sleeve and spoke timidly. Julian, darling, don't blame Clara. Good food isn't cheap. Clara was being practical. Nonsense, I can afford to feed you the best food every single day. Julian turned back to Clara, his face clouded with annoyance. Aren't you going to go make something else? Arthur Sterling slapped him across the face. Have you sent a single dollar home all these years? Clara has been supporting the two of us with her own work. If she wasn't frugal, we would have starved to death long ago. You're the one whose conscience was eaten by a dog. This is what we have. Take it or leave it. The man before her had eyes only for Vivian Wallace. Clara realized that the image of the big brother who had taken her away from the cemetery was fading, becoming blurry. Instead of placating Arthur as she usually would, she spoke flatly. There's no better food. This is all there is. Take it or leave it. Clara wiped her bleeding finger on her clothes, sat down, and began to eat her gruel, ignoring the mess on the floor. She was leaving soon, she thought. From now on, cleaning the house was Vivian's and the Sterlings' responsibility. It wasn't her place as an outsider to interfere. Seething, Julian stomped into the kitchen. He returned without a word, his face grim as he started to eat. After dinner, Clara went back to her room, only to stare in shock at the bare wooden bed frame. She turned to see Julian watching her with a smirk. Vivi's been hurt, she can't be exposed to a draft, your bedding is with her for now. You can make do on the chair for one night. And don't you dare wake up Mom and Dad. Julian turned and walked away. Vivian's soft, coy laughter drifted from nearby. Oh, Julian, darling, you're so naughty. She deserves it. Who told her to cause trouble for you? I'll always be your staunchest supporter. Their voices faded into the distance. Clara closed her eyes, her hands clutching the locket around her neck as tears streamed silently down her cheeks. 9 more days. Just 9 more days and she would be free. After a sleepless night in the cold, Clara woke up with a fever. In a daze, she heard Julian and Vivian's voices outside. We're going into town today, Clara. Go to my uncle's house, let him know, and come with us. I've made a list of things to buy. Just get what's on it when you're in town. By the time Clara opened her eyes, they were long gone. The house was quiet. The Sterlings had gone out early, and there was no food left for her. Clara's gaze fell, and she walked out in silence. She remembered how Mrs. Sterling used to always leave a bowl of porridge for her, even if she overslept, and would gently ask if she hadn't slept well. Clara forced a smile and stumbled toward the road to catch the cart. By the time she got there, the cart to town was already pulling away. Luckily, the driver, Mr. Miller, noticed her and quickly stopped to wait. Clara, you're going to town too? I just asked Julian if you were coming, and he said you weren't. That's why I started driving. Hurry, get on. She froze, looking at Mr. Miller apologetically. Mr. Miller, I'm so sorry to hold you up. Mr. Miller shook his head. As she got closer, he cried out in alarm. Clara, you're sick, what are you doing going to town like this? Clara shook her head wearily. I'm fine, Mr. Miller. She got on the cart. Her expression was calm as she looked at Julian. What are you staring at me for? You were too slow. Is it fair to make all these people wait for you? Julian was shamelessly self-righteous. He glanced at Clara's flushed cheeks and sneered, putting on a pitiful act now, are we? Just like Vivi said you would. You orphans without parents, your best trick is always playing the victim. Chapter 3. Clara's nails dug sharply into her palms. The man in front of her was casually disparaging her deceased parents, seemingly forgetting who they had died for. The man who had once promised to cherish her for a lifetime vanished in that instant. Fine, Clara thought. It wasn't like they'd have any contact in the future anyway. A neighbor, Mrs. Hayes, couldn't listen anymore. That's enough. Julian Sterling, aren't you afraid of being struck by lightning for talking to your wife like that? Clara, your professor asked us to help look after your parents. What does that mean? Are you leaving? Clara smiled faintly, a hopeful light in her eyes. Yes, I'm going to a place where I'm wanted more. Julian snorted. You think she has the heart to leave me? Leave? Where can an orphan like you go? You'll just end up leeching off our family. He then lowered his head, wrapping an arm around Vivian with deep concern. Vivi, you have to tell me if you feel unwell at all. Clara Thompson, move over, you're crowding Vivian. Don't worry, Vivi, she's just the family's ward, a servant. From now on, she'll take care of my parents and wait on us. She should be grateful we give her a roof over her head. Clara gave a self-deprecating laugh, ignoring Vivian's provocative stare. Perhaps because of her fever, she felt drowsy the whole way. When she came to, Vivian and Julian were gone. She had left in a hurry and had no money on her, so she couldn't buy the supplies. She looked around, feeling lost. A wave of dizziness washed over her, and she finally collapsed to the ground. When Clara woke up, she was in the town hospital. Mrs. Hayes was sitting by her bed, her face etched with worry. Clara, you're awake, are you feeling all right? Seeing her stir, Mrs. Hayes's eyes lit up as she anxiously asked. Clara shook her head, her voice slightly hoarse. Mrs. Hayes, thank you. I don't have any money on me right now, but I'll pay you back as soon as I get home. Mrs. Hayes waved her hands dismissively, her expression still worried. Don't worry about that. Why did you have to be so stubborn and come to town? But it's a good thing you did. The doctor said if you'd come any later, you might not have made it. You get some rest now, Clara. You're definitely not going home today. Mr. Miller is coming back tomorrow. You can go with him then. Mrs. Hayes advised her as she headed out. Clara nodded gratefully. Turning slightly, she saw that Mrs. Hayes had left a crisp $20 bill on the table for her. A sudden warmth spread through her heart. Perhaps it was the medicine, but she slept soundly. It wasn't until the evening of the next day that she hurried home. The family of 4 was sitting at the table. A few green vegetable leaves floated in a bowl of clear broth, looking utterly unappetizing. They, too, seemed to have no appetite. Hearing footsteps, all four of them looked up at once. "Clara, you're back. Where have you been? Don't you know everyone's been waiting for you to cook dinner?" Eleanor Sterling and Julian spoke at the same time. She froze, and before she could even form a rebuttal, Julian shoved her into the kitchen. "Hurry up and cook. All you do is slack off outside all day. Do you expect us to wait on you?" He suddenly remembered something, and his eyes scanned Clara up and down. A moment later, his face changed drastically. "Didn't I give you a list yesterday? You didn't buy a single thing? Are you trying to starve us to death?" His barrage of questions made Clara's face darken. She couldn't help but raise her voice. "You told me to buy those things, but did you give me any money or ration tickets? If I was supposed to buy everything, then what were you and Vivian doing in town?" He sneered. "It's just money and tickets. Our family has raised you for so many years, and now you're going to haggle with us over this? You're just a dog we raised. Isn't your money and your tickets ours to begin with?" Chapter 4. A dull ache pierced Clara's heart, and a mocking smile touched her lips. The only reason Clara had agreed to stay was for Julian's parents. She had wanted to spend these last few days with them. But she had been gone for a whole night, and the Sterlings hadn't asked where she was, nor had they even bothered to inquire about her from the others who had gone to town. Clara had once truly considered Julian's parents her own. Now she finally understood. People were only kind to her because of her role. Once she was no longer Julian's future wife, the Sterlings had no reason to be nice to her. And naturally, compared to an orphan who had lost her parents, they preferred the city girl, Vivian. The passionate, sincere boy she once knew, and the place she had called home, now seemed rotten to the core. As they were arguing, Vivian ran over from her room. Her cheeks were flushed, and she stood before Julian with a touch of shyness. "Julian, darling, how do I look in this?" Clara turned to see Vivian looking youthful and vibrant in a pink woolen coat. Julian, whose face had been dark just moments before, now smiled. "Of course, you look beautiful." Vivian smiled playfully and stuck out her tongue. "It's the coat that's beautiful. How could a 150 coat not be?" Clara was stunned. She suddenly understood why the two of them had gone to town the day before. After a long pause, she finally spoke. "I've done enough. I owe your parents, but I don't owe you." Without looking back, she walked decisively toward her room. Inside her room, the contents of her wardrobe were scattered all over the floor, with faint footprints visible on the clothes. Clara's expression changed in an instant. Ignoring the clothes, she hurried toward a box inside the wardrobe. The once locked box was now smashed to pieces. Inside, only a locket with a broken chain, bent out of shape, lay silently. The photograph inside was blackened. Of the original picture of 3 people, only faint human shapes remained. The full image was completely gone. In an instant, tears streamed from her eyes. She picked up the box and walked toward Julian and Vivian. Her steps were heavy. Julian Sterling. It was the first time she had ever called his name in such a cold tone. Julian stiffened, seemingly unaccustomed to it. A moment later, he sneered, so ill-mannered. "Shouting like that, are you some kind of shrew?" Clara suddenly laughed coldly. "Even if I were a shrew, it's better than being a thief like you. I won't press the matter of the money in the box, but you will give me $20. I need to pay back Mrs. Hayes. As for the locket, Julian, Before she could finish, Julian interrupted her impatiently. He said, "Vivi needs to buy a position at a job. It costs $500 in total, and I was a little short. Since that money was in our house, it was mine to use. It's just a picture of 2 dead people. Keeping it around is bad luck. I was just helping you get rid of the evil spirits." In an instant, a chill seeped into her bones. All she felt was sorrow and desolation. Her parents had saved nothing but an ungrateful backstabber. She had lost all her strength. Just as she was about to argue with him, Mrs. Hayes arrived. "Clara, the father of one of the boys, Danny, was hoping you could tutor his son. Do you think?" As Mrs. Hayes spoke, Clara couldn't help but feel apologetic. "Mrs. Hayes, I'm afraid I won't have the time. I'll go talk to Danny's father in a bit." Mrs. Hayes paused, then suddenly remembered. She chuckled. "Oh, look at my memory. The more rushed I am, the more mistakes I make. How could I forget something as important as Professor Peterson taking you with him?" She glanced sideways at Julian, her expression filled with unconcealed sarcasm. She said, Actually, it wasn't me who paid for your hospital stay yesterday. Professor Peterson left me $30 when he asked me to look after your parents. I didn't want to take it, so it came in handy for you." Clara felt a pang of guilt, and her voice dropped. "Mrs. Hayes, I'm so sorry. I should be paying you back, but I just don't have the money right now." Mrs. Hayes waved her hands dismissively and walked straight out. Julian couldn't help but frown. "You were in the hospital. What kind of serious illness requires a hospital stay? What a waste of money." She found it utterly ironic. She turned to leave. He hadn't heard that she was leaving, only that being hospitalized cost money. Chapter 5. "You can't leave." Julian reached out and grabbed Clara's wrist. A sharp pain shot through her arm. She winced, her brow furrowed as she looked down at her wrist. A stark red mark had appeared on her pale skin, a shocking sight. She pressed her lips together, her gaze toward Julian growing colder. "What do you want now?" Julian was impatient. "Even if you don't cook, you should at least do the laundry, right? There are so many people in this house, so many clothes. Are you expecting someone else to do this for you?" Clara stared at him in disbelief. How could he say something so shameless? "Do it for me? You mean if I weren't here, you wouldn't wash your own clothes? Isn't Vivian Wallace your future wife? Shouldn't she be the one washing them for you now?" Vivian stood beside him, tears welling in her eyes, tugging at his sleeve and whispering, "Julian, darling, let's not trouble Clara with this." "I can do it." She bit her lower lip, an expression of pained forbearance on her face. Clara was so angry she laughed. Just as she was about to speak, Julian cut her off. "What nonsense are you talking about? I told you when we first got together that I would never let you suffer even the slightest bit. How would someone as pampered as you know how to do this kind of rough work? Having a country bumpkin like Clara Thompson wash your clothes, I'm afraid that would be an insult to you." Vivian let out a shy laugh. "Julian, darling, what are you saying? Clara is still here." Listening to their conversation, Clara felt physically ill. She had never seen anyone so utterly and thoroughly shameless. Looking at the mad couple, she enunciated each word clearly. "Wash your clothes. Are you worthy? But if you want me to, I suppose I could. If you're willing to wear rags, I'd be more than happy to help you wash them." She turned and walked away without a backward glance, the sound of their furious roars echoing behind her. By the time she had finished explaining things to Danny's father, it was already dark. The front door of the house was locked from the inside. Her brow furrowed, and she knocked on the door. In an instant, the faint light seeping through the crack in the door vanished. She stood there, stunned, her fists clenched so tightly they cracked. A night breeze swept over her, and she wrapped her arms around herself, feeling helpless. She slowly sank to the ground, leaning against the door. As she waited, she fell asleep. Morning. The first thing Clara saw when she opened her eyes was a pair of thick lips lunging toward her. The village hooligan, Tony Tiger Rossi, was puckering his lips with a lecherous grin, aiming for her mouth. Her clothes, which had been neat, were now disheveled. It looked as if something had happened. She was horrified, letting out a scream as she tried to scramble away from Tiger. "Get away from me, don't touch me." The commotion finally roused the neighbors. The door behind her finally opened. "Clara Thompson, you really are shameless. So that's what I heard last night. You were sneaking out to have a secret rendezvous?" Julian's face was filled with disgust. He was so furious that he made no effort to lower his voice. Clara bit her lip, her bloodshot eyes staring daggers at him. "Julian Sterling, wasn't it you who threw me out?" Julian denied it instantly. "Why would I throw you out? You're my wife. Who would let his own wife cheat on him?" The villagers, who had been about to speak up after hearing Clara's words, now nodded in agreement. No matter how big the problem, no man in the village would tolerate his wife being unfaithful. Although Julian had brought another woman back, Clara had been in the Sterling family for 10 years. She was practically one of them. Carrying on like this at the crack of dawn. "Tiger, you know this could land you in jail?" Vivian's words were heavy with insinuation. Tiger, who had been trying to assault Clara, froze for a moment. When he came to, he immediately put on a wronged expression. "No, don't arrest me. It was Clara who seduced me. She snuck into my house last night and climbed into my bed. How can you blame me for this?" Chapter 6. In front of everyone, Tiger dropped to his knees. He pointed a finger at Clara, his face a mask of fury. In an instant, the way everyone looked at Clara turned strange. She stood frozen, so shocked she let out a bitter laugh. "You say I seduced you. Then tell me, why wouldn't I be at your house instead of here, at the Sterling's front door, just waiting to get caught? Tiger immediately shot back. Wasn't it you who said you wanted to make Julian Sterling jealous? You said if he brought someone home, you would too. So shameless. Does she really think everyone is out to get her? I used to think she was a good person. You really can't judge a book by its cover. A tramp like her should be punished severely. One ugly comment followed another. Such a clumsy lie was actually believed. The once friendly villagers, along with Arthur and a leaner Sterling, all pointed their fingers at her, as if she were the very person they described. No one believed her defense. But then again, people are more inclined to believe what they want to believe, rather than the truth. Clara, I know Julian was wrong to bring Vivian back, but you didn't have to do something like this just to spite him. We've always thought of you as our daughter-in-law. Clara, you should go. Our family isn't good enough for you. Eleanor Sterling's eyes glistened with tears. After speaking, she turned and went back into her room. Arthur Sterling also sighed and left. The Sterling's front door was shut in her face. As it closed, Clara saw Vivian give her a triumphant smile. And Julian had his arm around Vivian's waist, laughing and talking with her. The Sterlings were a happy family, and she was the outsider. Suddenly, Clara understood. This morning was all a performance, a play staged by the Sterlings to openly cast her out. Julian needed an excuse to marry Vivian without tarnishing his reputation. So be it. From now on, they owed each other nothing. She considered the debt for her 10 years of upbringing repaid. Instead of rushing to the lab to find her professor, she went alone to the cemetery. Clara pulled weeds and tidied the graves, tears streaming down her face. Mom, Dad, if you knew you saved a person like that, would you regret it? Is that all you've got? Vivian's voice suddenly appeared. Clara stood up, her face expressionless, wanting nothing more than to slap the smug look off Vivian's face. Why, I told you I would leave, she asked. Vivian's face instantly turned ugly. Leave? You think you could bear to? You were just using that as an excuse to hold on to him. He says he detests you, despises you, but do you have any idea how many times he's called out your name in his dreams? Clara suddenly found it all so tiresome. Called my name? You must be incredibly insecure to say something like that. A man who only calls my name in his dreams, but does nothing but beat and curse me in reality. I wouldn't want someone like that even if he were handed to me on a silver platter. Only you would treat him like a treasure. Vivian pressed her lips together, her eyes fixed on her, clearly not believing a word. A moment later, she moved closer to Clara, her voice dropping to a strange, low tone. Don't blame me for this. Clara froze. Before she could react, she suddenly felt a dagger in her hand. The handle was in her grasp, but the blade was already buried in Vivian's body. She stumbled back in horror. Julian, who had appeared out of nowhere, screamed and shoved Clara aside, pulling Vivian tightly into his arms. Chapter 7. Julian rushed her to the hospital. Clara didn't run. If she left now, she would never be able to clear her name. The moment he stepped out of the hospital room, Julian slapped her hard across the face. She fell to the ground, her cheeks swelling visibly. Julian's eyes looked like they were about to spit fire, his voice choked with rage. Vivi came to comfort you out of the kindness of her heart, and you tried to kill her. Clara Thompson, I really underestimated you. A woman's heart is the most venomous thing. If anything happens to Vivi, I'll make you pay with your life. A metallic taste filled her mouth. The moment she opened it to defend herself, a mouthful of blood came out. Clara Thompson, I regret ever knowing you. He gave her no chance to explain. He dragged her out of the hospital by her neck, in a small alley. Julian threw her to the ground. A group of men swarmed over, surrounding her. Teach her a good lesson. I'll come back and tell you to stop when Vivi is safe and sound. His expression was cold, his tone as casual as if he were asking, Have you eaten today? More than a dozen hooligans closed in on Clara, step by step. She panicked. Julian, it wasn't me. I really didn't try to kill her. Tears fell as she shook her head frantically. Julian let out a cold laugh, his voice dripping with sarcasm and disdain. So, are you trying to tell me Vivi stabbed herself? That she wanted to die? Clara froze, a chill seeping deep into her bones. She was too ruthless. Julian's faith in Vivian was absolute. There was nothing she could do to shake the image he had of her. She gave a bitter smile. Julian turned away with even more scorn. As Julian left, the thugs began their torment. They forced her to kneel, slapping her face repeatedly. Like a cat playing with a mouse, they would let her go, only to catch her again and again. Within a few hours, Clara's body was covered in bruises. She was exhausted, collapsing to the ground, unable to move. Tears streamed from the corners of her eyes, but the thugs showed no signs of stopping. One of them kicked Clara in the chest and snarled, "Get up, keep running. I'll give you 1 minute. If you can run out of this alley, we'll let you go." The terms were generous. But at that moment, she had no energy left to deal with any of it. Under a fresh round of beatings, she could only crawl on the ground, trying to reach the exit. She was almost there. Less than half the time had passed. Thud, she collided with something and fell flat on the ground. Lifting her head, she met Julian's fierce gaze. The light in her eyes died. This time, there was really no escape. "Clara Thompson, you should be glad Vivi has woken up." A wave of relief washed over her at Julian's words. A glimmer of hope appeared in her eyes. "Does that mean you'll let me go?" Julian snorted. "Let you go? Then Vivi would have suffered for nothing. Brothers, you've all worked hard. This tramp is yours for the taking." The men were surprised for a moment, then cheered. "You're generous, Boss Julian." A chill ran down her spine. Julian strode away from the scene, plunging Clara into despair. "Julian Sterling, I truly regret." Tears slid from the corners of her eyes, her hoarse voice unnervingly clear in the night. The hooligans grinned. "Little lady, you crossed Boss Julian, so don't blame us. You're no saint yourself, even capable of murder. So just give in to us. After all, we're all birds of a feather." She felt a surge of scorn. Spitting at them, she said, "You will all get what you deserve." Enraged, the leader of the group lunged at her, pinning her to the ground. "You dare talk to me like that, you bitch? Then don't blame me for being rough." Her clothes were violently torn. Clara felt a sudden chill on her skin. Her desperate eyes slowly grew numb. She was exhausted, and her struggles became weaker and weaker. The men grew excited. "Stop!" Chapter 8. A sharp command rang out, and a flicker of hope ignited in Clara's heart. "Help me!" Her voice was like a knife scraping her throat. "Police, let her go." At the man's cold words, the thugs exchanged glances. Their faces paled, and they scattered in an instant. Once she was sure she was safe, the tension left her body, and she fainted. 2 days later, she was escorted back to the Sterlings' home by the police. The family of 4 was having a meal. Clara walked straight past them, heading for her room. Julian slammed his hand on the table and shot up, his face contorted with rage. "Clara Thompson, been running wild outside for 2 days, have you? Forgotten how to greet people?" Everyone put down their bowls and chopsticks, looking at Clara with displeasure. She stared straight at Julian, her gaze so intense it felt as if it could see through to his filthy soul. The feeling made Julian deeply uncomfortable. He strode over to her. His hand flew up, but just as it was about to land, she caught his wrist. "Julian Sterling, this farce needs to end." His words displeased him. He frowned, as if deep in thought. The next moment, he snorted and pulled a piece of paper from his pocket, fiddling with it. "What farce?" Before she could answer, the words "letter of transfer" on the paper came into clear view. She frowned, trying to suppress her anger. "I heard you need transfer papers. The brigade leader is in town for a meeting and won't be back for 7 days. Looks like you won't be needing these after all." As Julian spoke, the veins on Clara's temples throbbed. "I was just going to teach you a lesson for hurting Vivi, but who knew you'd run away? In that case, how about you get on your knees, kowtow to Vivi, and we'll call it even? Otherwise, I might just rip these papers up." Perhaps afraid his parents would find out what he'd done, Julian whispered in her ear. His soft whisper was like a devil's curse, impossible to shake. Clara, who had intended to remain defiant, looked up. His eyes were full of malice, and his hand toyed with the edge of the papers, threatening to tear them at any moment. Her heart pounded with fear. Under Julian's threat, she gave in. Unknowingly, tears of despair streamed down her cheeks as she slowly sank to her knees. Head bowed, her voice was hoarse and low. "I'm sorry." Julian's parents looked on with a hint of pity, but Julian stopped them. "Mom, Dad, she's gotten completely out of control. First murder, now staying out all night for 2 days straight. If we don't teach her a lesson, she's bound to cause even bigger trouble in the future." At his words, the Sterlings fell silent. With a sigh, they went back to their room. Vivian smiled and said, "I'm so sorry, sister. You did something wrong, so I can't really intervene. You should just kneel here properly tonight." She took Julian's arm and they walked away. A piece of paper fluttered to the ground. Clara looked down. It was the transfer papers Julian had accidentally dropped. In an instant, tears of joy streamed down her face. She scrambled up from the floor, went back to her room to grab the burned locket and the papers, and resolutely walked out of the Sterling house. She walked until her feet were blistered, laughing and crying all the while. Finally, she was gone for good. Chapter 9. Morning. The house was silent, and the cold kitchen felt devoid of life. Julian Sterling stormed into Clara Thompson's room. "Clara Thompson, slacking off first thing in the morning, are you? Not even making breakfast?" He threw the door open. The bed was bare, just as it had been when he took the bedding away. The clothes scattered on the floor were the mess he and Vivian Wallace had made, but Clara was nowhere to be seen. His expression changed. He hurried toward his parents' room. "Julian, darling." Vivian, confused, reached out to stop him but was shoved aside. "Get out of my way." Julian's voice was harsh, his actions rough. Vivian was pushed over, her lower back hitting the corner of a table. She sucked in a sharp breath. Watching Julian's retreating back, she clenched her fists in frustration, lowering her head to hide the resentment in her eyes. As she drew closer, she heard Julian's panicked voice. "Mom, Dad, have you seen Clara?" The sound of Vivian's knuckles cracking filled the air, but Julian, completely focused on Clara, paid her no mind. He looked frantic, a thought forming in his mind that he refused to believe. His parents, woken so abruptly, were slightly annoyed. They exchanged a glance. "She came back last night. I didn't hear anything." In an instant, Julian was speechless. He had forgotten that his parents were already asleep when he returned yesterday. Afraid they would plead for Clara, he hadn't woken them. He rubbed his temples wearily and finally said, "It's nothing. She probably went to Mrs. Hayes's house. I'll go check there." Turning around, he saw Vivian with a pained expression. He froze, a look of guilt on his face. "Vivi, I'm sorry. I was in a hurry just now, that's why I pushed you. Are you okay?" He reached out to lift Vivian's shirt. She didn't resist, her eyes brimming with tears. She obediently revealed her injury. One glance was all it took for Julian to feel a pang of guilt, a flicker of pain in his eyes. A large, dark bruise marred her snow-white skin. The stark contrast made him gasp. "Vivi, I'm so sorry. I really didn't mean it. I'll put some medicine on it when I get back." Before Vivian could reply, he had already run off. Vivian could only stomp her foot in frustration. At Mrs. Hayes's house, hearing Julian's voice, Mrs. Hayes threw a basin of water on his head. "You dog of a man, get lost." The words he was about to say were swallowed back. Mrs. Hayes slammed the door shut, clearly refusing to see him. He had nowhere to vent his anger and could only return home, fuming. Was she at Mrs. Hayes's? No matter how dissatisfied they were with Clara, Julian's parents still remembered the debt they owed her parents for saving their son's life and couldn't help but ask, "What happened to you?" Before they could finish, Julian broke down. "That madwoman threw a bucket of water on me. I don't care if Clara is dead or alive. Let her come back or not, even if she dies out there. I won't be the one to bury her." He slammed his door. The more he thought, the more something felt wrong. He checked the transfer papers he had put away, only to find they were gone. "Damn it!" He punched the wall hard, his knuckles bleeding. Vivian cried out in alarm and rushed over. "Julian, darling, no matter how angry you are, you can't hurt yourself." She tried to tend to his wound, but he subtly moved away. "I'm fine. I'm just furious that backstabber ran off like that." Vivian froze, only to see Julian had already run out the door. Chapter 10. The cart to town hadn't left yet. He looked at Mr. Miller anxiously. "Mr. Miller, is Clara Thompson here with you?" Mr. Miller pressed his lips together and shook his head with a sneer. "You're asking me about your own wife. Too busy fooling around to even remember who your wife is, are you? It's not my day to go to town. If Clara's gone, then you need to take a good, hard look at what you've done." He slammed the door, and Julian was left standing there, rejected once again. Julian rubbed his nose sheepishly, feeling a little lost. He was angry. He didn't know what he was angry about, so he decided to put Clara out of his mind for the time being. But life had to go on, even without Clara. His parents were old, so the burden of cooking and cleaning couldn't fall on them. At first, Vivian put on a show of helping, but gradually she grew tired of it. After she threw the dishes on the floor in frustration one more time, Julian finally had enough. He hauled her up from the floor, his voice thick with anger. Vivian Wallace, are you doing this on purpose? You can't even handle a simple task like this. What are you good for? Clara never. Before Julian could finish, a sharp slap landed on his face. For a moment, he stared in disbelief, his hand covering his cheek, frozen in place. When he came to his senses, he demanded, "You madwoman, what the hell is your problem?" Tears streamed down Vivian's cheeks, yet a stubborn glint remained in her eyes. Her hoarse, choked voice made Julian's breath catch in his throat. If Clara is so wonderful, then go back to her. Why did you ever get involved with me? I've never had to do these things before. What right do you have to demand that I do them perfectly? Julian Sterling, I was so wrong about you. After her outburst, she finally ran out of the house, crying. Julian stood there in a daze, looking in the direction Vivian had gone, his face full of remorse. After a long while, he sighed. He followed in Vivian's footsteps, chasing after her. The village was small, but he couldn't find her anywhere. Finally, under the large poplar tree at the edge of the village, he thought he saw her silhouette. He hurried over, but he saw another person walking toward the poplar tree. It was Tiger. Vivi, I've missed you so much, he grinned, lunging toward Vivian, ready to pull her into his arms. Julian froze, quickly finding a spot to hide. Vivian sidestepped him, a flicker of annoyance crossing her face. But she was an expert at hiding her feelings, and the expression vanished as quickly as it appeared. She let out a soft, seductive laugh. Tiger, darling, you're still so busy with that widow. How could you possibly have time for me? I bet if I hadn't contacted you, you would have forgotten all about me, wouldn't you? Her coquettish tone made Tiger's heart race. He chuckled, his hands wandering mischievously onto her body. He gave her rear a squeeze, earning a playful scolding from Vivian. You're so naughty, Tiger. What if someone sees us? By the way, have you heard anything about Clara Thompson? Listening to their conversation, Julian's fists clenched tightly. He looked at Vivian, and at that moment, she seemed like a complete stranger. Chapter 11. Crack in his anger, Julian lost his footing and accidentally snapped a dry twig. Who's there? Vivian spun around warily, a look of panic on her face. She approached Julian's hiding spot, step by step. Julian stopped hiding, emerging from the shadows with a dark expression. Julian, darling, I was just... Vivian was flustered, her words jumbled and incoherent. She hurried toward him. The moment she got close, he frowned and took a step back, moving away from her. In a voice filled with unfamiliarity and shame, he said, Vivian Wallace, how can you be so vicious? Vivian stood frozen as if struck by lightning, not daring to move. She looked hurt. After a long pause, she spoke, her voice laced with defiance. It was Tiger who was harassing me. Julian was speechless. He held up his hands and shook his head, backing away from Vivian. I heard everything you two said. She grew angry, after a long moment. She grabbed Tiger and dragged him in front of Julian, staring at Tiger furiously. Tiger, you tell him, wasn't it you who was harassing me? Her gaze was sharp. Although Tiger was annoyed, he still nodded. Looking at Julian, his eyes flickered. Yes, it was me. I was harassing Comrade Wallace. Julian let out a cold laugh. Before he could speak, Tiger mustered his courage and blurted out, What gives you the right to have two wives? Since you don't cherish them, I'll cherish them for you. Julian was enraged. He punched Tiger square in the eye. Go ahead, hitting me won't change the fact that you're a scumbag. Two wives, the first one was beautiful and capable. I wanted to marry her, but your family refused me. I was angry and wanted to fight you, but I was afraid my dad would beat me to death. And you have no intention of marrying this new one either. So what if I have a little taste? She's a tramp anyway. This barrage of provocations completely infuriated Julian. Vivian, seeing that things were getting out of hand, shoved Tiger to the ground. Stop it, what nonsense are you spouting? She frantically pulled at Tiger's hair, trying to get him to calm down. Tiger laughed. He wasn't in the mood for chivalry. He flipped over and pinned her underneath him. If you hadn't seduced me back then, how would I have known what a tramp you are? You were the one who insisted on climbing into my bed to frame Clara Thompson, creating an alibi for the two of us. Who the hell do you think you are? You promised to help me get Clara, didn't you? Now she's run off, so either you become my wife, or you find Clara and bring her back to me. Julian couldn't take it anymore. He slammed Tiger against a tree. He held Tiger down and beat him mercilessly. Tiger quickly passed out. Vivian, with tears in her eyes, tried to defend herself, but Julian left her behind. His mind was a mess right now. Tiger's words were like needles piercing his heart. Thinking back on everything that had happened, he couldn't help but slap himself. His eyes turned red. His parents were startled, looking at him with alarm. "Son, what's wrong?" He suddenly burst into tears. "Mom, Dad, I've lost Clara." As soon as he said it, his father took a long drag from his pipe, still seeming resentful. "Why are you still thinking about that ungrateful, worthless backstabber? I think Vivian is a good girl. Why don't you two go get your marriage license sometime soon?" He choked back sobs and shook his head. "Dad, no, we misunderstood her. It was Vivian who framed Clara." Chapter 12. He recounted everything he had heard from Tiger to his parents. Gradually, they too grew angry. Finally, Arthur Sterling put down his pipe, his expression tinged with helplessness. "It's too late to say anything now. Clara is already gone." At that moment, the three of them fell into a heavy silence. By the time Vivian finally caught up and returned to the house, all of her belongings had been thrown outside. She stood stunned in the courtyard, staring in disbelief at her scattered possessions. Just as she was about to speak, Julian's cold voice cut her off. "Take your things and get out. You're not welcome here. From now on, let's act as if we've never met." He turned and went into Clara's room, taking out the things she had left behind one by one. A group photo fell out of an album. In the picture, a young Julian Sterling and a young Clara Thompson stood closely together. The handwriting on the back made him pause. "Julian Sterling and Clara Thompson will be together forever and never part." The familiar handwriting was his own. The past flashed before his eyes like a movie. Finally, he remembered. He laughed and cried at the same time, cursing himself for being so blind. They were childhood sweethearts, deeply in love. How had things turned out like this? He locked himself in his room for days, until he was a shadow of his former self. Arthur Sterling couldn't bear it any longer. He dragged Julian out of the room. He slapped him across the face. His voice was thick with suppressed anger. "Look at you, only a fool does nothing. Go find the person who did this to you and settle the score. At least then we won't have to look at you moping around the house." At his words, Julian's eyes lit up. He rushed out of the house. Arthur Sterling finally let out a sigh of relief at the department store. Vivian was surprised to see Julian. She hurried toward him, her voice filled with excitement. "Julian, darling, you're not angry anymore, are you?" Before she could touch him, he shoved her away. Julian's disgusted voice made her freeze. "Get lost. You're in my way." Seeing her blocking the entrance, he pushed her down. She and the display rack she was standing next to all came crashing down. Her eyes welled with tears as she looked at him with a wounded expression. "Are you annoying, or what?" Julian spat impatiently and headed straight for the manager's office. A few moments later, Julian emerged. The manager followed behind him, his face grim. They walked over to Vivian. Before she could put on a tearful display for them, her eyes widened in shock. "Vivian Wallace, you're fired. Pack your things and get out now." Vivian stood there rigidly, looking at the two of them in disbelief. "Why?" Julian snorted, not bothering to answer. But the manager's voice, filled with gritted teeth, came from behind him. "Why? You don't know who you've offended? I always told you to keep a low profile, and now look what's happened. Get out." Vivian didn't have time to think. She gritted her teeth and said, "Manager, what about the $500 I paid for the job?" The manager cursed. "Was that your money? I've already given the money for the job to Comrade Sterling. If you really want it, go ask him for it." Julian paused for a moment, then without a backward glance, strode into the station. Chapter 13. The Island. "This is great, Professor. Our data is a perfect match. The experiment is a success." For the first time since arriving on the island, Clara Thompson looked up from her data, her eyes shining with unconcealable excitement. Professor Peterson's eyes welled with tears. After a long while, he put down the data and sighed. "Clara, now that the first phase is over, you should go out and relax. Comrade Ethan King has been waiting outside for you every single day." Clara felt a wave of embarrassment. Just as she was about to say something, her professor cut her off. "Or are you still not over that man?" Professor Peterson's expression was serious. It looked like he was about to have a long talk with Clara. Clara was scared. She quickly promised, "Professor, please don't joke. I just escaped from a nightmare. I promise I'll have Comrade King accompany me for a walk tomorrow. Is that okay?" Sensing her perfunctory tone, Professor Peterson didn't mind. He waved his hand, a slight smile touching his lips. He promptly shooed her out of the lab. Outside the door, a tall, straight figure stood at the entrance. The dim light cast a lonely shadow, but Clara's appearance brought color to the figure's world. He followed her, not too close, not too far, maintaining a perfect social distance. He seemed to be afraid of making her uncomfortable. At that moment, Clara didn't know what to say. After a long hesitation, remembering her professor's mission, she finally mustered the courage. "Comrade Ethan King, I was wondering if you're free tomorrow." The moment their eyes met, Ethan's lit up. He immediately snapped into a military salute, his voice booming, "Yes, I am. At Comrade Thompson's service, anytime." His straight-laced, blockhead-like demeanor made Clara stare for a moment, then burst out laughing. At that, Ethan's face turned red. He lowered his hand and scratched his head, but his eyes remained bright as he looked at Clara. "Come with me for a walk tomorrow. I haven't been out since I arrived on the island." Ethan immediately agreed. It wasn't until he had walked Clara back to her dormitory that he jumped for joy. Through the window, the sight of his jubilant figure brought a smile to Clara's eyes. The next day, just as the sky was beginning to lighten, Clara saw a figure standing outside her door. The weather was chilly, and his breath formed little clouds in the air as he clutched his coat. He looked like he was freezing. Clara didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She immediately went out and invited him into her dormitory. At the doorway, Ethan stopped, refusing to take a single step inside. Clara was slightly taken aback, looking at him in confusion. "What's wrong? It's so cold outside." Ethan looked a little embarrassed. "I'm a grown man. It wouldn't be right for me to enter a female comrade's dormitory." She was stunned. Then she heard him add, "What if it starts rumors and damages your reputation? I could never forgive myself for that." Ethan's smile broke the tension of what could have been a heavy topic. Clara blushed and turned away quickly. From behind her came Ethan's earnest voice, "I hope to become your revolutionary partner, so I can openly appear wherever you are." Her foot caught, and she stumbled. Sensing something was wrong, Ethan's expression changed. He hurried to steady Clara. "Be careful." Once she was steady on her feet, he returned to his post at the door, back behind the safety line. Clara lowered her gaze, an unidentifiable emotion swirling within her. Chapter 14. "Oh right, I almost forgot. Comrade Thompson, I brought you breakfast. I made it myself." Ethan King blushed, seemingly embarrassed to admit it. Clara was surprised for a moment. When she saw the somewhat misshapen buns in the lunchbox, she couldn't help but chuckle. Ethan's face turned an even deeper shade of red. His head, which had never been lowered, now wished it could bury itself in the ground. "It was my first time making them. I ruined 7 or 8 before I got these few decent ones." Fearing she would misunderstand, he quickly added, "But I definitely didn't waste any food. I ate all the failed ones myself." In an instant, tears welled up in Clara's eyes. She ate the buns, one bite at a time. With his head down, Ethan naturally didn't notice. "I'm finished. They were delicious." After a long moment, her voice was a little muffled as she tried to sound cheerful. Ethan grinned, showing his teeth. Just as they were about to leave, Ethan was struck by a fist in the eye. Ethan, who had been lost in thought, his expression instantly changed. His sharp gaze fell on the newcomer. As another fist came flying toward him, he twisted and slammed the man to the ground. "Who are you? This is a restricted military area. Who let you in?" Clara, who had been startled, finally came to her senses. She clutched her chest, her voice tinged with fear. When she saw who it was, her face instantly turned ugly. Her voice rose several octaves. "Julian Sterling, what are you doing here?" The man pinned to the ground looked up. Seeing Clara's frightened expression, his own face was a mixture of anger and other emotions. "Shouldn't I be here? So this is why you insisted on coming to the island. You already had a lover boy waiting for you. Have you two been hooking up all this time, just waiting for you to get to the island so you can fly off together? Clara Thompson, I won't allow it. You are my wife, and you can only be with me for the rest of your life." Julian's eyes were bloodshot. He had traveled 1,000 miles to see the woman he loved, only to find another man standing at her door. The shock was too much for him to handle. At that moment, he had eyes only for Clara. He wanted to crush her in his arms and tell her how much he missed her. Unfortunately, the moment he opened his mouth, Ethan knew who he was. He held Julian down firmly, giving him no chance to move. Don't change the subject. This is a restricted area. Who gave you permission to enter? He remained silent. It wasn't until the person in charge arrived that he began to apologize profusely. I'm so sorry, Commander King. This is the new political instructor who was just transferred here. Ethan's face was dark, his expression displeased. This is a political instructor. If his own thinking is crooked, how can he guide others in their work? Seeing that a fight was about to break out, Clara quickly pulled Ethan away. She ignored Julian, instead looking at Ethan with concern. At that moment, she felt a sense of unease, an urge to explain herself. After a long while, sensing Clara's anxiety, Ethan couldn't help but reach out and take her hand. I'm sorry, Clara mustered the courage to say, but Ethan cut her off with a smile. Don't say you're sorry. What does this have to do with you? Besides, getting hit in exchange for my beloved's concern isn't such a bad trade. Clara burst into laughter through her tears. He and I were never married. Chapter 15. Ethan King chuckled. He had wanted to take Clara Thompson's hand, but he suddenly stopped. Comrade Thompson, I know you are not married, which is why I want to be your revolutionary partner. I wonder if Comrade Thompson would be willing to accept. Clara fell silent. She had been a little moved, hadn't she? But this time, she hesitated. After a long silence, she spoke. Let me tell you a story. After you hear it, you can decide whether you still want to pursue me. Sensing her sadness, Ethan stood by her side in silence for a long time. As Clara recounted her past, every word was filled with sorrow and loss, but also a hint of release. Her soft, storytelling voice made Ethan's heart ache. It was noon. Unknowingly, tears were streaming down Clara's face. A rough palm wiped away her tears, bringing with it a touch of warmth. She looked up suddenly, still feeling a little uneasy. Comrade Thompson, I ask you, are you willing to be my revolutionary partner? From now on, I will protect you and love you, and I will never let you suffer even the slightest bit of injustice. Clara's mouth fell open in disbelief. Seeing her dazed and foolish look, a gentle light flickered in Ethan's eyes. I am. Her voice was choked with emotion. Ethan hadn't quite processed it yet. When he did, it felt as if the entire sky had lit up. His face was radiant with a joy he couldn't hide. He jumped up and down in excitement. Clara, wait for me, I'm going to submit our marriage application. Clara couldn't help but laugh. But she didn't stop him. She hadn't been blind to Ethan's efforts. She just hadn't had the courage to accept them. But because of the little incident with Julian Sterling, their plans to explore the island were put on hold. This made Ethan a little moody. She awkwardly gave Ethan a quick hug around the waist. I'll have another vacation soon. The organization will approve our leave. Ethan's earlier moodiness vanished completely, replaced by anticipation. He returned to the family compound. At the entrance, Julian stretched out an arm, blocking his path. Can we talk? Ethan, there's nothing to talk about. I know why you're here, but matters of the heart are not for you to decide. Julian was at a loss for words, his face grim. Aren't you curious about what kind of person your girlfriend really is? She was my family's ward. We ate and lived together. Everyone in the village recognized us as husband and wife. If you insist on being with her, she'll be shamed and cast out. He spoke with an air of self-importance, his eyes fixed on Ethan. He didn't want to miss any change in Ethan's expression. It was as if he would win the moment Ethan got angry. But Ethan remained expressionless, without the slightest flicker of emotion. This left him feeling frustrated. How about a sparring session? We can talk while we fight. Just as he was about to leave in frustration, Ethan spoke again. Without thinking about the implications, Julian agreed. It was as if he was confident that as long as Ethan agreed to talk, he could convince him to change his mind about being with Clara. But he didn't expect it. In the sparring ring, Ethan gave him no chance to speak, raining blow after blow on Julian's body. Julian's face darkened. He didn't hold back either and fought back. After a long time, Julian lay on the ground, unable to move. The pain was so intense he couldn't even lift his arms. In contrast, Ethan, who was still standing, had a face covered in bruises, but he was full of energy, his eyes filled with an indescribable scorn. Chapter 16. Ethan King snorted. You can be ignorant, but don't treat others like fools. As Clara's former childhood friend, did you ever consider how your slander and insults would hurt her? I know about your past. It's because of that I feel for her even more. want to protect her even more, and am even more unwilling to let you near her. Julian Sterling, you are a fool. You lost the one who loved you most. You don't deserve to love her. Ethan turned and walked away, leaving Julian with an ugly expression, his fists clenched so tightly they cracked. Ethan King, Clara Thompson is my wife, past, present, and future. I will be the only man in her life. Don't get too cocky. Ethan's steps faltered slightly, but his expression was tinged with sarcasm and impatience. Whatever. The next day in the family compound, a neighbor, Mrs. Davis, grabbed Ethan. Commander King, I hear you've been getting quite close to the new instructor's wife. We can't have any issues with conduct, you know. Mrs. Davis spoke earnestly, afraid Ethan would go down the wrong path. Ethan's face darkened. He looked up and saw Julian in the distance, a triumphant smile on his face. He rubbed his temples. Mrs. Davis, my girlfriend is the researcher, Clara Thompson. She's wonderful, our relationship is stable, and I've already submitted my marriage application. We're just waiting for it to be approved to get our license. Thank you for your concern, Mrs. Davis. I'll have to trouble you to help clear things up for my girlfriend. Mrs. Davis was stunned. She didn't understand what was happening for a long moment. By the time she wanted to ask for clarification, Ethan had already hurried away. But this was only the beginning. Throughout the day, countless people asked Ethan about his girlfriend. The news even spread within the research institute. Professor Peterson rubbed his temples, his heart aching as he looked at Clara. Clara, he's here. Did you know? Clara's pen paused in its calculations, ink bleeding into the paper. After a long moment, she looked up at her professor. Professor, I know. Before Professor Peterson could continue, disgusted voices came from the side. Who would have thought? She seems so quiet and gentle, but she's just a floozy. How did someone like her get into the research institute? Exactly, people like her should be kicked out. At that moment, Clara understood without Professor Peterson needing to ask any more questions. Her body went rigid, and she looked utterly dejected. She wanted to explain, but the words wouldn't come, until someone entered the lab. He gave a military salute, his expression extremely serious. Comrade Clara Thompson, someone has reported you for improper conduct. Please cooperate with our investigation. She couldn't help but laugh at herself. Soon, she said, I will cooperate with the investigation. She was taken away. Professor Peterson didn't even have time to stop them. It wasn't until she was gone that he came to his senses. What is all this nonsense? Go find Commander King. He needs to handle this. No one in the institute moved, each of them looking somewhat disdainful. Professor Peterson was furious, his cane tapping on the ground. Fine, if you won't go, I'll go myself. Things are not what you've heard. Don't just look at the surface. You've all known Clara for so long. Don't you trust her character? Fools utter fools. The others exchanged glances and hurried to catch up with Professor Peterson. Chapter 17. The Interrogation Room. The moment the bright light hit Clara Thompson's face, she closed her eyes instinctively. But before the questioning could begin, Julian Sterling walked in. Comrades, could you please let me have a word with my wife? If we can sort this out ourselves, we won't have to trouble you. The two officers recognized the new instructor, saluted, and left. Julian looked at the downcast Clara and couldn't resist reaching out to touch her face. She recoiled as if startled, trying to avoid his touch. Julian was instantly displeased. Looking down, he said, Do we really have to be like this? Clara smiled, her face still pale. Julian Sterling, you're as disgusting as ever. Do you have any idea how your act of feigned affection is enough to make one lose their appetite? Her voice was a little hoarse. Julian exploded, slamming his fist on the table. Clara Thompson, what's so hard about just giving in a little? She looked at Julian and couldn't help but laugh. Pa, Julian Sterling, are you even worth me giving in to? You came all this way just to ruin my reputation, to make everyone around me despise me. Well, I'm sorry, but you're going to be disappointed. My professor stands firmly behind me, and my boyfriend stands firmly by my side. Your little scheme has failed. As she finished speaking, a hand slapped hard across her face. Julian's face was contorted with rage, his voice choked with suppressed anger. Shut up, have you no shame? I'm not dead yet, I am your husband, what does he think he is? Clara Thompson, have you no shame? Flirting around like that, are you that desperate for a man? Julian, having lost all reason, spewed venomous words that made Clara frown in disbelief. after a long moment. She smiled. Tears streamed down her face. This was, in a way, closure for her past self. Clara, oh Clara, just look at what a terrible person you fell in love with. I regret it. At these words, Julian's eyes instantly lit up. He said, "What? Are you willing to be with me again?" Clara beckoned him over. Julian, full of excitement, leaned in closer, only to have Clara bite down hard on his ear. Julian's shriek echoed through the small interrogation room. "Are you crazy? You madwoman, you really don't hold back, do you?" Clara smiled. A trickle of blood from Julian's ear stained the corner of her mouth, giving her a slightly demonic look. "You shouldn't have provoked me. If you want to ruin my life, I won't go down without a fight. Julian Sterling, just you wait." As she finished speaking, Julian clenched his fists. "Bang, didn't I warn you not to pull any stunts, Julian Sterling? Are these pathetic tricks all you have? I used to think you had some redeeming qualities, but now I see you have none. You're just trash people like you pollute the air just by existing." Ethan King pinned him down and beat him mercilessly. He couldn't fight back, only able to let out muffled whimpers. After a long while, when he was beaten so badly he couldn't speak, Ethan finally reined in his fury. He walked over to Clara and wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth. Chapter 18. "Clara, are you hurt?" He sounded anxious. Clara suddenly smiled. She shook her head, her eyes brimming with tears. She glanced at Julian Sterling with a hint of triumph, a slight smile playing on her lips. "That's his blood. How could I be hurt?" He was still worried. He pulled Clara up and looked her over from head to toe. Only when he was sure she was unharmed did he breathe a sigh of relief. But it was only then that Clara saw the bruises all over Ethan King. "Why are you so injured?" She frowned, her gaze locking on Julian, her expression filled with anger. Before Ethan could reply, she had already stormed over to Julian. She slapped him across the face. Smack! Julian stared at her in disbelief, a strange look on his face. "Clara Thompson, what are you doing?" "Clara, what am I doing? Are your own actions even human? Wasn't it your doing that I was brought to this godforsaken place? And the bruises on my boyfriend's face, aren't they your handiwork too? Julian Sterling, stop playing these crooked games all day. You'd be better off using that energy to improve yourself." He grabbed Clara. "You think I wanted things to turn out like this? Clara, you should have come back with me. I've already kicked Vivian Wallace out. From now on, it will just be the two of us at home. There won't be any annoying tramps to bother us anymore. So please come back with me, okay? We'll have a big, healthy boy and a big, healthy girl." Clara stared at him in disbelief. She didn't know how he could say such shameless things. The next moment, her knee slammed into a certain part of his body. Julian cried out in pain. When he came to his senses, Clara and Ethan were long gone. After a long while, he finally recovered and slammed his fist on the table in frustration. Blood trickled down his knuckles. On the other side, Clara, who had been led out of the interrogation room, was still feeling a little down. Realizing what she had done, she looked panicked. "I don't think I'm supposed to be out yet, am I?" Ethan smiled. "Our marriage application has been approved, so we don't have to worry about his accusations of improper conduct anymore. After all, they were baseless to begin with." Clara was stunned for a long time, an indescribable sense of gratitude washing over her. The next moment, Ethan broke the mood. "Wife, after we get our license, can we move into the family compound?" Taking advantage of the fact that they were alone, he planted a quick kiss on her cheek. Clara's face turned bright red, and she was so embarrassed she couldn't lift her head. No matter what Ethan said, she nodded repeatedly. By the time she realized what she was doing, it was too late. Ethan had already swept her up into his arms and was spinning her around in public. Clara didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Not far away, Julian watched the heartwarming scene, clenching his fists in frustration, his eyes looking as if they were about to spit fire. He immediately went to make a phone call. His expression was full of resentment. Looking at the old photograph, he couldn't suppress his anger. The photo in his hand was crumpled and smoothed out again and again. Lost in her joy, Clara was completely unaware. The Research Institute gave Clara some time off. After all, after being through an investigation, she deserved some comfort. The moment Clara appeared, everyone started apologizing profusely. It wasn't until someone mentioned how her professor had defended her that a smile appeared on her face. She bowed deeply to her professor. "Professor, thank you." Chapter 19. As the wedding day approached, Clara Thompson and Ethan King were both busy. They had planned to take some photos. The moment they arrived in town, Clara saw two familiar figures. She stiffened slightly, a look of unease on her face. Because of what had happened before, a rift had formed between her and Julian Sterling's parents. "Someone you know, do you want to see them?" Ethan's gaze on Julian's parents was deep. He seemed to be pondering something. After a moment, she shook her head. "The past is the past. There's no need to bring it up again." The two of them walked into the photo studio without looking back. Julian's parents were also on their way to the military base. But perhaps because they weren't fond of traveling, they didn't see Julian's parents for a long time afterward. So much so that Clara had almost forgotten about them. Many of Ethan's comrades came to their wedding. It was a lively and grand affair. But halfway through the ceremony, someone burst in. They smashed the food on the tables to pieces. Clara didn't recognize the man in the lead. She and Ethan exchanged a look and walked toward the man. "Comrade, today is my wedding. Could you please?" Before she could finish, a slap sent her sprawling to the ground. The sudden turn of events threw the scene into chaos. Most of the guests were soldiers, and they reacted quickly, restraining the man. The man, pinned to the ground, shouted, "Clara Thompson, shameless homewrecker, adulteress." One ugly word after another spewed from the man's mouth. Ethan's clenched fists could no longer be contained. He walked toward the man, his face grim. "What nonsense are you talking about?" He pushed his comrades aside and grabbed the man's collar himself. In an instant, the man's face turned red, but he couldn't say a word. "Who sent you here? This is a military base. Confess now, and you might get a lighter sentence." Ethan's voice was so cold it sent a shiver down everyone's spine. It was no joke. When the god of war was angry, it was more than they could handle. The man was unfazed. Instead, he grinned, showing his teeth. "You married a tramp who steals other people's men, and you have the nerve to speak up for her?" The crowd was furious. The next moment, a heavily pregnant Vivian Wallace ran into the wedding, crying. She knelt before Clara, her voice pleading, "Comrade Thompson, I beg you, please let my man go, okay? Julian and I are in love. You have someone new now, so please stop stringing him along, okay?" As she spoke, she kowtowed repeatedly. Her red-rimmed eyes perfectly cast her in the role of a victim. Coupled with her large belly, she drew everyone's attention. "Comrade, please get up first. If you have any grievances, we will help you seek justice. This isn't good for the baby." With the help of the crowd, Vivian gave Clara a timid glance before carefully getting to her feet. In a soft, affected voice, she described her love for Julian. But it was all ruined by this childhood friend, Comrade Clara Thompson. She claimed to be the family's ward, Julian's wife. The doubts that had been dispelled in the crowd were now reignited. The way they looked at Clara became strange. Clara's body trembled with anger. This was unbelievable. The blatant twisting of the truth was so obvious, yet it successfully deceived the uninformed crowd. Everyone looked at her with strange expressions. But having learned their lesson, they kept their thoughts to themselves. They looked at Clara cautiously, waiting for the drama to unfold. Her fists clenched so tightly they cracked. All the grievances she had suffered since Vivian's appearance rushed back to her. She stormed up to her and slapped her hard across the face. "Vivian Wallace, I've tolerated your lies and deceit, but this is my wedding. If you insist on making a scene, then don't blame me for not being polite." She glanced meaningfully at Vivian's stomach. Vivian smiled subtly. She grabbed Clara's hand and thrashed around, feigning a fit. In the struggle, Clara lost her grip and Vivian fell to the ground. Blood slowly pooled beneath her. The women in the crowd finally screamed. "Get her to a hospital," Chapter 20. Ethan King's brow was furrowed as he gave instructions to the crowd. He stood by Clara Thompson's side, unmoving. The political commissar looked at her, hesitating. "Commissar Zhao, with your keen eye, surely you could see what just happened, couldn't you? If you still intend to trouble my wife over this, then please..." Before he could finish, Commissar Zhao hurried away. He held Clara in his arms, letting her cry her heart out. Why is it that just as I'm about to start my own life, they keep showing up, determined to destroy me?" Ethan held her quietly, gently patting her back. Finally, she had cried enough and regained her composure. She turned and headed for Julian Sterling's house. Without a word, she slapped Julian hard across the face. "Julian Sterling, you'd better keep your woman in check. Today is my wedding." You let her cause a scene like that just because you wanted to see me humiliated, didn't you? Julian was momentarily stunned. His parents rushed out of their room. Clara, you've misunderstood. Julian and that woman broke up a long time ago. Clara ignored them. She stared straight at Julian. She is not my woman, I will handle it. Clara snorted and turned to leave. That night, Vivian Wallace was dragged out of the hospital. Her eyes were red and swollen. The residents of the family compound had all gathered at Ethan's house. Julian's actions showed no trace of tenderness. He shoved her, causing her to stumble. He said, "Are you going to confess, or should I do it for you?" Vivian was humiliated for a moment. After a long pause, she spoke. "I'm sorry. What I said before was a lie. I wronged Comrade Thompson." At that, she pressed her lips together and said no more. Julian frowned, his voice laced with displeasure. "Tell the story exactly as you told it before. Don't leave anything out, Vivian. Julian Sterling, are you really so heartless as to make me admit in public that I—" Her voice was hoarse, choked with sobs. But Julian nodded with unusual solemnity. "Yes, I want you to admit in public that you are the other woman. But the child in your belly isn't mine, is it? I never touched you, so don't go around claiming I'm the father." Vivian was furious. But when she met Julian's cold gaze, she instantly fell silent. She bowed deeply to Clara. In a voice filled with humiliation, she retold the story of Clara, but this time their roles were reversed. Her voice began to tremble. The crowd grew angry. Shameless to have such loose morals and then to slander a good comrade. Clara's life returned to normal. Julian was also reprimanded and disciplined for his misconduct. The next time she saw him, his once straight back was now stooped. His face was etched with sorrow, his beard unkempt. When he saw her, his eyes lit up. He hurried over to Clara, his voice urgent. "Clara, please go see Mom and Dad, will you?" After the wedding, Dad had a stroke from the anger, and Mom fainted. "I really don't know what to do." A grown man was crying like a child in front of her. She had wanted to refuse firmly, but the thought that the two of them had raised her for many years made her hesitate. "Wife, I'll go with you." Ethan stood by her side, whispering to her. Their eyes met, and Clara finally nodded. This scene did not escape Julian's notice, and a flicker of anger appeared in his eyes. He pressed his lips together, saying nothing. He silently led the way. Chapter 21. The hospital. The moment she stepped into the hospital room, Clara Thompson wanted to retreat. The filthy insults from the past swirled in her mind like a curse. The disbelieving eyes of Julian Sterling's parents burned her. At that moment, she couldn't walk in without any resentment. "Is that Clara? Are you back?" Arthur Sterling's voice came from inside. It made her desire to flee seem like a joke. She took a deep breath and summoned the courage to enter. "Uncle, Aunt, I came to see you." She placed the fruit basket on the table. The light that had been in their eyes suddenly dimmed. Arthur glanced at Julian by the door and suddenly spoke. "Clara, we old folks have had a close call this time. We're practically 1 foot in the grave. I've never asked you for anything in my life, but I just hope that before I die, I can see you and Julian get married and have children, so we can hold a grandchild." Clara's face instantly turned ugly. She trembled with anger and turned to leave, but Julian pulled her outside. "Mom and Dad are finally feeling a bit better. Can you please not give them that look? They know they were wrong about what happened before, but no matter what, they are our elders. We can't expect them to bow down and apologize to us, can we? They don't have much time left. Can't you just pretend to go along with them and agree for now?" Julian's eyes were pleading. Clara was silent. She pressed her lips together and walked back into the room. "Uncle, Aunt, I'm truly sorry, but I cannot agree to your request." Clara Thompson, the moment she spoke, Julian sensed something was wrong and shouted in alarm. Ethan King stood by her side, a guardian protecting her. He said, "Uncle, Aunt, Clara and I are already married. For you two to make such a suggestion, isn't that asking too much? Or do you want Clara to be branded with the stigma of improper conduct again? I'm sure you've seen the situation your son is in." The moment he spoke, Arthur glared at him. Neither of them would back down. "We raised Clara Thompson, she has to listen to us. You're an outsider. What right do you have to meddle in our family's affairs?" Eleanor Sterling was the first to react. She nimbly jumped out of bed, intending to push Ethan over. As she approached, his expression didn't change. He twisted her arm and pinned her to the bed. Eleanor cried out in pain. It hurts, let go. A military officer is hitting someone, help, a military officer is hitting someone. With that, the entire hospital room became a scene of chaos. Everyone was looking at Ethan. I'm sorry, it's all a misunderstanding. Please, everyone, go back to what you were doing. Clara looked at the crowd outside the door, apologizing profusely. Ethan's expression remained unchanged. He said, no need. Clara let them stay. Her hand, which had been shooing them away, froze. Ethan released his grip. Comrades, please be the judge. My wife and I are legally married, and our marriage has been approved by the organization. But these two are my wife's adoptive parents. They are using the years they spent raising her to coerce her into marrying their biological son. Is this right or wrong? The crowd exchanged glances. Looking at Alina, one person couldn't help but speak up. Ma'am, why do you have to do this? Your adopted daughter is married now. To cause a scene like this now, you're interfering with a military marriage. That's illegal. Take my advice, there are so many good people in the world. There's no need to be so fixated on this one. Chapter 22. The crowd chimed in, offering their advice. Julian Sterling's parents were at a loss for words. Sweat beaded on their foreheads as they looked at Clara Thompson for help. She pressed her lips together. In front of the two elders, she suddenly tore a piece of her clothing. Uncle, aunt, in ancient times, people would cut their robes to sever ties. Today, I will do the same. She held up the piece of cloth and knelt on the ground. Julian's parents were stunned. They panicked. Clara, what are you doing? Get up, she shook her head. She kowtowed, her forehead hitting the ground with a thud. First, I thank you for the grace of raising me. A second kowtow followed. Second, I thank you for the love and care you showed me. Third, I thank you for taking me in. Though I may be unfilial, I no longer owe your family anything. My own parents died because of Julian. I have been trapped in the cage of the Sterling family for too long. It is time for us to go our separate ways. Mom, Dad, please take care of yourselves. She dropped the piece of cloth, turned, and ran out. Tears streamed down her face. The Sterlings were selfish to the core. It wasn't as if she had only just realized this today. A warm, large hand rested on her head, and a wave of heat surged through her heart. Ethan King, you don't owe them anything. You don't need to feel burdened. Besides, if they can use the grace of raising you to blackmail you today, they can use the sentiment of protecting you to trap you in the future. It's a never-ending source of trouble that should be cut off early. Clara was silent. After a long moment, her voice was muffled. That may be true, but it's still unbearable to see the parents who once protected me become so calculating. Ethan smiled, rubbing her forehead for a moment. He stopped only when her hair was tousled. Clara glared at Ethan. Talk properly, don't get so handsy. His actions broke the somber mood. She was slightly taken aback. She looked at Ethan suspiciously. He grinned. She was at a loss for words. She pressed her lips together. You really know how to lead me on. Having resolved the trouble with the Sterlings, Clara felt a sense of relief. She returned to the research institute. This time, there were no rumors, and everyone was exceptionally united. Clara threw herself into her work, and her career seemed to be flourishing. Professor Peterson smiled. He teased proudly, "My student is pretty amazing, right? Aren't you all jealous?" Everyone laughed and joked back with him. "Comrade Thompson, you have a visitor." A researcher she didn't know approached her. She was slightly taken aback. The Sterlings wouldn't come looking for her, so who could it be? Her gaze lingered on the man for a moment before she said coolly, "I understand." She hurried outside. Professor Peterson tried to stop her, but it was probably too late. Outside the institute, Vivian Wallace was looking around, seemingly anxious. Her eyes lit up when she saw Clara. "You're here, Clara. I don't think we're familiar enough to be visiting each other at work, are we?" Vivian gave a bitter smile. She didn't explain. "Let's find a place to talk." Clara didn't refuse, suggesting they meet at the edge of the village. With so many people around, surely nothing could go wrong. But the next moment, a man in a hurry bumped into her. She stumbled, feeling something being placed against her lower back. She didn't pay it any mind. A flicker of a smile crossed Vivian's eyes. She spoke apologetically, "I'm sorry for what happened before. I never meant to harm you. I just loved Julian too much. You know, I'm an orphan. Growing up, besides Julian, no one else ever protected me or loved me." Clara was so angry she laughed. She cut off Vivian's incessant chatter. "That's between you two, you shouldn't have come to me." She strode away without a moment's hesitation. Vivian watched her from a distance, not trying to stop her. Not long after she returned to the institute, "State Security, who is Clara Thompson? Please come with us." A tall man appeared before them. Chapter 23. Everyone was taken aback. This time, they chose to stand in front of Clara Thompson to protect her. "Excuse me, what has Comrade Thompson done wrong? For you to come to the Research Institute and take someone like this, isn't that a bit improper?" The man in the lead shook his head, his lips pressed together in displeasure. "We don't know the specifics yet. We need to question her carefully." The crowd grew agitated. They were tired of Clara being targeted again and again, even if she wasn't. They were about to intervene, but Clara stopped them. "Thank you, professors and senior colleagues, for your support. I will cooperate with State Security's work." She was taken to a small, dark room. The room was not unfamiliar to her. The next moment, she was handcuffed. "What is the meaning of this?" The comrade who had been silent until now snorted coldly. "What's the meaning? The meaning of dealing with a spy? We caught a spy, and according to his confession, all the blueprints he obtained came from you." Clara's face turned grim. A female comrade spoke first. "You all go out first, I'll do a search." The bright white light shone in her eyes, and she frowned in discomfort. She fumbled around on her body for a long time. Finally, she found a piece of paper. "What's this?" A secret message was written on it. The female comrade's brow furrowed. After studying it for a long time, she decisively handed the paper to the others. "Found this on Clara Thompson. Get someone to decipher it." In the small, dark room, Clara's expression was ugly. At that moment, she seemed to have figured out the problem. It was Vivian Wallace when the others returned. Clara, with a grim face, recounted the events of the day. "Comrade Thompson, we will verify your account. The organization trusts you. Please be patient and wait for the results. Your being held here now is merely a temporary measure." She was a little surprised. The comrades from State Security seemed much more reasonable than before. She was left alone in the small, dark room. But as these people left the room, they began to talk. "Commander King is really putting it all on the line, to risk his career for his wife. It's a good thing we looked into this researcher's life story and know she's dedicated to her country. Otherwise, I'd be speaking up for Commander King." Their voices faded into the distance, but their words set off a storm in Clara's mind. It was Ethan King. Her voice was filled with a sense of helplessness. "Fool, knock, knock." A knock on the door brought her back to her senses. Julian Sterling strode in. They looked at each other in silence. After a long moment, he couldn't hold back any longer. "I'm sorry." She looked at Julian with suspicion, not quite understanding. Julian seemed to find it difficult to speak. "It was Vivian. She colluded with spies, which led to this situation. If it weren't for me, she wouldn't have framed you." Clara smiled. She shook her head. "Just arrest her. And please, Comrade Sterling, don't show any mercy to your beloved." Julian gave a bitter smile. "My beloved is only you. I was just deceived by Vivian." He fled, not daring to see her reaction. Clara was slightly taken aback, then chuckled, but she soon lowered her head. What was lost was lost. It was too late to say these things now. Thinking of Ethan, a smile touched her lips again. But besides Julian, no one else came near the place, including Ethan. In this place, Clara lost all track of time. She borrowed some paper and a pen, and, under the light of the small, dark room, began to calculate on the scratch paper. She couldn't let her own problems delay the progress of the entire research project. Finally, her eyes widened in surprise. She immediately borrowed a phone from State Security and called the Research Institute. "Professor, I have a new theory. After data verification, it should be feasible." The person on the other end hung up before Clara could finish. The word "wait" was carried away by the wind. Clara smiled. Before long, a large group from the Research Institute stormed into the small, dark room. The tiny room was instantly packed. "Clara, hurry up and explain this plan. We've been stuck on this for too long. I see your data has such a small margin of error. Let me calculate it again." Everyone was talking at once. They didn't care where they were, or whether they should be in contact with Clara. All they knew was that a new discovery meant their research could move forward. Finally, Professor Peterson's eyes filled with tears. Of course, that's it. We were thinking too complicatedly. Clara, you've made a great contribution this time." The bright light caught Professor Peterson's eye, and he frowned. "You've been living in a place like this since you were brought here. Those bastards, how dare they lock you up here, without even confirming the facts?" Clara didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She reached out and stopped her professor. "Professor, please don't go." Before she could finish, her professor was already heading for the office, leaning on his cane. The others laughed. "Professor Peterson really treasures you. If you don't let him go, he'll be even more upset." Let's go, we'll go too. I want to see how long these people plan to keep our junior sister locked up." Chapter 24. Clara Thompson was released, but she was told a high-ranking officer wanted to see her. General King. The name startled her. She looked up to see a man who bore a striking resemblance to Ethan King, smiling as he sized her up. She was momentarily dazed. "Comrade Thompson is truly remarkable. In such a short time, you've won everyone over and even helped our research take a huge leap forward. A brilliant young talent indeed." She blushed. It was the first time she had received such praise, and she felt she didn't deserve it. "General, please don't tease me. I really don't feel worthy." Clara spoke graciously. This made General King laugh heartily. After a moment, he spoke again. "Comrade Thompson, actually, it was my idea to keep you here." The sudden change in topic made Clara look up in surprise. "General King, don't be surprised. The organization trusts that you've done nothing wrong. You are also my daughter-in-law. How could I not protect you? Keeping you here was the only way to shield you from those people's interference. Ethan is at a critical stage, and if I didn't push him a little, he would just stay in the same place. Besides, I know he doesn't want you to have any pressure or burden." Clara was stunned for a moment, a wave of warmth washing over her. She smiled. She readily replied, "Thank you for the arrangements, Dad. I'm very satisfied. But could you please have someone send me some more scratch paper? I've run out." She helplessly handed the thick stack of scratch paper to her father-in-law. General King chuckled. He laughed heartily. "Don't worry. We won't delay your research progress." Clara smiled faintly. Then she was handed a large red envelope. "This is for calling me Dad." Clara didn't refuse. After everything was arranged, General King got up to leave. In the small, dark room, Clara worked day and night, designing and revising blueprints, calculating data. With no one to disturb her, she lost all track of time. She would sleep when she was tired and eat when she was hungry. Most of her time was spent with the blueprints in front of her. Finally, Ethan King and Julian Sterling returned. Clara was also released. At the hospital, Ethan King was lying in bed. When he saw Clara walk in, he immediately jumped up from the bed, stood at attention, and saluted. "Wife, what are you doing here?" She didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She quickly grabbed the IV stand that was about to fall. "Are you crazy? Don't you know you're injured?" She tried to look as stern as possible, but it only made Ethan feel helpless. "Wife, that expression doesn't suit you. You should be smiling. You're most beautiful when you smile." Caught off guard by his flirting, Clara's cheeks flushed red. "It's just a small injury. Thanks to Comrade Sterling, he blocked a fatal blow for me, which is how I managed to survive." Ethan's words left her stunned. After a long moment, she said, "I understand. I'm going for a walk." She turned and left. Behind her, Ethan watched her back and sighed softly, but he didn't regret saying what he did. At Julian's hospital room, when Clara knocked on the door, she saw Julian's parents looking at her with surprise. "Clara, you," before Eleanor Sterling could finish, Arthur Sterling cut her off. He sighed, his eyes filled with a hint of apology. "Clara, we're sorry about what happened before. We were old and foolish." "We were foolish back then. We believed whatever they said, and we hurt you. I suppose this is our retribution. By the way, about severing ties before," Eleanor quickly interjected, "we must sever those ties. We want to formally adopt you as our goddaughter to make up for all these years of regret." Clara shook her head. "Aunt, there's no need. Our relationship is fine as it is. If we change our status, no one will feel comfortable." Seeing her so resolute, Julian's parents' eyes filled with tears. "We were being unreasonable. Clara is right. There's no need." The two of them turned away to wipe their tears, not wanting to show their vulnerability in front of her. The room was silent. Only the faint sound of the two elders' sobs could be heard. After a long while, they finally spoke. "You stay and talk with Julian. We'll go get some fresh air." Clara nodded. In an instant, only Julian and Clara were left in the room. Julian kept staring at her, making her feel a little uncomfortable. After a long moment, he spoke. Clara, I didn't show any favoritism. I had her executed. Chapter 25. Why? Because the one I love, that's not what I'm asking. Clara Thompson gritted her teeth, but Julian Sterling smiled. But as he smiled, tears began to fall. Because the one I love is you, and because he is the one you love. I know that if he died, you wouldn't spare me a second glance. But if I saved him, at least you would remember me, wouldn't you? His words left her speechless. She fell silent, an unidentifiable emotion churning within her. Thank you. If it weren't for you, he would have really died. The two of them sat in silence for a long time. As the sky began to darken, she said, I have to go see Ethan King. He needs someone there. You should rest and recover. Clara walked away. Julian finally broke down, sobbing loudly. I really know I was wrong. Why can't you give me another chance? But by then, Clara could no longer hear him. After he had cried himself out, Julian finally closed his eyes. In truth, no one knew. He hadn't wanted to have any interaction with Ethan at all. After all, no one wants to have too much to do with the man who stole the person they love. Especially the loser. But he had seen Ethan, in front of General King, swear to God that he would stake his entire career on the organization's trust in Clara. That unconditional trust had shaken him to the core, a heavy blow to his soul. If he had also insisted on believing in her back then, perhaps their story wouldn't have ended this way. Later. To draw fire, Ethan had rushed out alone, becoming the target for everyone. He had been stunned for a long time. From that moment on, he knew he had lost. Only a man as upright and righteous as him was worthy of someone as wonderful as her. He had lost completely, without even a shred of strength to fight back. So when he saw Ethan's life hanging by a thread, he had rushed out without hesitation. He had used his own body to shield Ethan. What had he said at that moment? He had said, Ethan King, treat Clara well, she is a very good girl. My biggest regret in this life is not marrying Clara, you have to protect her for me. But at that time, Ethan had already passed out and no one had heard him. Clara was in the next room, taking care of Ethan. From time to time, she would also bring food to Julian. You're really not afraid I'll run off with him, are you? Once, when she went next door and her own husband didn't react, she said in exasperation. Ethan smiled. He said, if you really did run off, I could chase you and bring you back. Besides, even if you wanted to go with him now, he would be too ashamed to take you. Clara rolled her eyes, after a long moment. She picked up the lunchbox from the table and walked decisively to the room next door. But the room was empty. Julian was nowhere to be seen. She was slightly taken aback and grabbed a passing nurse. Comrade, where's the person in this room? Comrade Sterling. He was discharged. He said his parents were leaving, and he wanted to make sure they left peacefully. The nurse looked at her for a long time and suddenly recognized her. You must be Comrade Thompson, right? He asked me to give you a message. Thank you for your care recently. You don't need to trouble yourself with bringing him food anymore. Clara didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She turned and went back to her room. Ethan didn't ask, instead trying to hug Clara as usual. Wife, how long has it been since I've held you? Don't you miss it? Clara rolled her eyes. You have no idea how injured you are, do you? Just focus on getting better. More than 10 days later, Ethan was finally allowed to be discharged. The moment he walked in the door, Ethan saw an envelope on the table. He didn't open it, instead handing it to Clara. Wife, a letter for you. She opened the letter. It was a thick stack of papers, a testament to the sender's thoughtfulness. One glance at the handwriting on the envelope, and Clara knew it was from Julian. She was a little surprised and pulled Ethan to sit down. Want to read it together? It's from Julian. Ethan was more than happy to. By the end, his expression was heavy. Chapter 26. Julian Sterling was gone. He said it was to forget her. He left a stack of photos, each one featuring her parents. I am sorry for burning your locket. Please forgive my ignorance and recklessness at the time. I feel I should apologize for this. I have kept all the photos of Uncle and Aunt Thompson. I am in them, and I don't know how to remove myself. If you don't like it, you can scratch out my face. Please forgive the foolishness of my younger self for hurting you. I can't do much, but I can pray for your well-being from my hometown. Clara Thompson lowered her gaze. A smile touched her lips. A good ending, I suppose. Ethan King was at a loss. He didn't know what to do with the photos. He couldn't just keep photos of his love rival in front of him all the time. That would be too foolish. Clara, is the locket mentioned in the letter still around? I want to see it. She went into the room and handed him the burned locket. Here, this is it, but it's been completely ruined, he smiled. I need to go out of town for a bit. I'll have a surprise for you when I get back. You work hard, eat well, and rest well. Wait for me to come back. He gently tapped her nose, making her blush. Soon, Ethan left the house, leaving Clara feeling a little confused. Seaport City. Ethan searched every photo studio but couldn't find the origin of the locket. Until the very last one, the owner looked a little surprised. This locket looks familiar. I think I know which family it belongs to. Let me think. He breathed a sigh of relief and stood there quietly, not wanting to rush him. I remember now, it was taken by a very famous old master, Master Croft. But he doesn't take pictures anymore. You can try the last house in that alley over there. That's Master Croft's place. Ethan thanked him and walked in that direction. Master Croft was just about to close his door. He was a little surprised to see a young man. Why have so many people been coming to my place recently? Master Croft. Young man, who are you looking for? Ethan respectfully introduced himself and explained his purpose. Master Croft was easygoing and, without another word, pulled out the negatives. What a coincidence. Not long ago, another young man came looking for this roll of film, but I couldn't bear to part with it. This time, I like the look of you, so you can have it. Master Croft also found many other photos of the family of 3. These are all the photos they took here over the years. That family of 3, their love was enviable. That's why I remember them so well. Ethan hadn't expected such a pleasant surprise and thanked him profusely. Looking at the simple house and the faintly dripping ceiling beams, he decisively went up and repaired the beams. He worked until it was dark. Finally, he had finished patching up Master Croft's house. Master Croft was overjoyed and even gave him several identical lockets. The father in the photo carved his name on this himself. He said he wanted to use this locket for photos every year. But after all these years, I'm afraid he's no longer with us. Ethan's heart grew heavy. As he left Master Croft's house, the joy of the impending gift for his wife slowly faded. Thud, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. The sound of an apology brought Ethan back to his senses. Julian looked at him with surprise. What are you doing here? He held up the locket in his hand and smiled brightly. Fixing a locket for my wife. All right, you just don't want Clara to see me all the time, do you? Julian gave a bitter smile, seeing through Ethan's intentions at a glance. Being exposed, Ethan didn't feel the slightest bit of embarrassment. You already know, so there's nothing to hide. Want to grab a bite? The two of them met at a state-run restaurant. It was only then that Ethan brought up the matter of the photos. The photos of Clara's family. Julian instantly became wary, his gaze flickering slightly. What about the photos? Don't tell me you think I took them. Seeing his defensive posture, Ethan didn't expose him. After a long moment, he said, All right, you worked hard to get those photos. I have no reason to take them from you, but I hope you won't bother Clara anymore. Her past was too hard. Julian gave a bitter smile. I know, that's why I came back to hide. I'll try to forget Clara, but matters of the heart can't be forced. Ethan didn't interrupt. No one could force such things. After the meal, it was already late. Julian, stay at my place for the night. Clara's room is still the same. You can stay there. Ethan, who had been about to refuse, decisively agreed. But as he approached the room, he felt a sense of apprehension. When he saw the neatly arranged room, exactly like the one in the family compound, he was stunned. Chapter 27. Julian Sterling smiled shyly. This has been her habit since she was a child. Even when she moves, the arrangement of her room never changes. I imagine her dormitory and your room in the family compound are just like this, right? Ethan King nodded. He lay down on Clara Thompson's bed. Throughout the night, a familiar scent put him at ease. You can see if there's anything you want to take with you for her. From now on, this will be her family home. Ethan King, that makes me your big brother-in-law, you know. The next morning, Julian's eyes were misty, his voice slightly choked. Ethan noticed the subtle change in his emotions. He was stunned for a moment, then sighed. All right. But he never did call him big brother-in-law. After all, he wasn't Clara. He couldn't make that decision for her. Julian didn't press the issue. It was just an excuse for himself. After breakfast, Ethan hit the road. He was eager to return. Clara was still in the lab, hard at work with her calculations, until Professor Peterson called her over, his voice mysterious. "You should go home, you have a visitor today." Clara was surprised, but no matter how many times she asked, Professor Peterson remained tight-lipped. She got up, resigned, and headed home. In the evening, the lights in her house were dim, but the door, which had been locked, was now open. She walked in, puzzled. In an instant, the lights flashed on, and Ethan walked toward her, holding a cake. "Happy birthday, wife. Try it. This is a Western-style cake. I hear people eat this on their birthdays." Clara didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Her heart was full, and a shy, girlish expression appeared on her face. At Ethan's urging, she began to eat the cake, one bite at a time. But on the last bite, she heard a crunch. "Ouch!" She looked aggrieved and took the object out of her mouth. The moment she saw the locket, she forgot the pain, her eyes shining with joy. Where did you get this?" Until she opened it. A photo of her family of 3 was revealed. Her eyes widened, and before she knew it, they had turned red. She caressed the locket, laughing and crying at the same time. It was a mix of nostalgia and, more than anything, deep gratitude. Ethan smiled. "How's this for a birthday present? Pretty thoughtful, right? I went all the way to Seaport City to find Master Croft." Clara nodded, her eyes glistening with tears. The next moment, she saw him pull another locket from his palm. "Selfishly, I want you to look at me more, so I took the liberty of putting a photo of the 2 of us in a locket as well. Look, will you allow me to help you put on this new locket?" His eyes were bright, filled with a pleading look. Clara couldn't bear to refuse and nodded decisively. She said, "Thank you, Ethan. I love you." Saying those words made her blush even more, but it sent Ethan into a state of ecstasy. "By the way, Julian wanted me to give you the $500, but I wasn't willing. I should be the one to provide for my own wife, so I told him to donate it to a school if he didn't want it." It took Clara a while to process what he had said, and then she didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She gave him a thumbs up and said, "Well done." Before the 2 of them could go to bed, they were startled by a frantic knocking at the door. Ethan, who had been about to get intimate with his wife, was now filled with nothing but frustration. He opened the door resentfully. He looked sheepishly at his own father, and after a long pause, weakly called out, "Dad." Chapter 28. General King snorted and strode into the room. "What? Giving me a sour face the moment I walk in? Did I interrupt something?" Clara Thompson came out with a smile. "Dad, you're joking. What good could he possibly be up to? Is there something you came for today?" General King smiled. He said, "There's an academic conference. Normally, the Research Institute would choose who attends, but your professor strongly recommended you, saying you were the most suitable. So you might need to prepare. You leave in 10 days. Clara was surprised. Her eyes widened in an instant. "I can go? That's wonderful, thank you, Dad. And of course, my biggest thanks go to my professor." General King laughed. Then his gaze turned serious as he glanced at Ethan King. "You prepare as well. You will lead the team to protect the safety of our country's scientists. You must ensure their safe return." "Yes, Chief." Ethan set aside his grievances, saluted, and promptly ushered his father out. General King. "You little brat, at least let me have a drink of water before I go." But fortunately, General King wasn't angry. 10 days later, the group set off for overseas. Although they were in different roles, they both held the same belief. She and Ethan looked at each other from a distance. Ethan smiled and mouthed the words, "I will keep you all safe." Clara lowered her gaze, a slow smile spreading across her face. As the youngest representative sent by the country, Clara was under immense pressure. The Western media and the so-called scientists all targeted her. One tricky question after another was thrown at her, determined to make her look foolish. Ethan, listening from the side, felt his heart ache for her, but his military discipline kept him firmly in place, guarding them from behind. Clara smiled gracefully and handled it all with ease. In the back and forth of questions and answers, the Western media finally ran out of things to say. Visibly, the media outlets were flustered. She let out a soft laugh. "Thank you all for your questions." Finally, someone openly extended an olive branch. "Miss Thompson, would you be willing to come to our country and contribute your talents? We offer excellent compensation and have superior resources to nurture you. Your achievements could be even greater than they are now." The man spoke in English. Clara's steps faltered slightly. She turned to look at the official who had extended the offer. She smiled and replied in her native tongue, "Thank you for your invitation, sir. Our country is very strong. It loves me very much, and I love it very much. If you are willing, you are welcome to stay here and experience the love of our country. You will come to love it here." The official was instantly at a loss for words, able only to glare at her as she walked away. This moment was captured by the media. Within a day, her most beautiful smile was featured on the most prominent covers of major newspapers, magazines, and even on television. Julian Sterling looked at the radiant Clara in the newspaper and couldn't help but smile. His gaze fell on the man in the corner, only half of his face visible. He knew that was Ethan King, who was always protecting her. This is for the best. We are all working to make our country better. He is a better match for Clara than I am. On the other side, after the conference, Clara flew back to her country. She chattered on about her anxiety and fear. "But Clara," Ethan pulled her in front of him. His expression was serious as he said, "You were amazing. You left those difficult reporters speechless. You were absolutely shining." Clara smiled happily. "I was the best version of myself, and in the future, things would only get better."